Hi there, Andreas here with ExpressPads Finger Drumming, and in this video I will show you how you can create drum sequences on your Novation circuit. And the things that I will cover in detail are how you can record something in sequencing mode in real time, how you can then edit drum notes that you have recorded, how you can change the drum patches, the drum sounds via the macro controls, how you can change tempo and swing, and how you can enable fixed velocity. But before you record your first drum groove, you should find an empty session which you can use to create a new song. So you go to session mode, and then you see these 32 pads either lit brightly blue or dimmed blue. And that means that the brightly lit pads contain some sessions already, and the dimmed ones are empty slots which you can use for new projects. And also the upper two rows here, those are factory presets. You can override them if you want to, but they are by default. And the lower two pad rows are your user presets that you can just use as you like. Okay, so let's find an empty pad here, an empty session. And the next thing you should do is go to drum 1. And when you then hit play, you see that there are two white pads running through the timeline. And this is actually your sequencing window. And the question could be, why are those now two pads? And the answer is that drum 1 and drum 2 are both sequenced on the same view, which means that drum 1 is covered by the upper two pad rows and drum 2 is covered by the lower two drum or pad rows. And it goes likewise for drum 3 and 4. And what you need to know is that by default on drum 1 you will find a bass drum, on drum 2 a snare drum, and here you'll find a closed hi-hat and an open hi-hat. Now when you want to record something, you can do this either while the device is stopped and then just play some bass drum notes. For example, here this would be a 4 on the floor beat, which means that there's a bass drum on each and every beat of the bar. And let's listen to this. And then you can also do the same thing while device is in play mode, and for example add some snare drums on beats 2 and 4, and maybe as a pickup note here on step number 16 of the snare drum timeline. And once you have done that, you might want to change the velocity of these notes. So you can go to velocity mode, and when you're in drum 1, then you see that the bass drums are lit here, and down there's the velocity per pad or per step that you have entered. And you saw that when I pressed one of these pads which are not lit right now, there's no velocity, and that's well, that's reasonable, right? Because no note means no velocity. But you can use this view in order to enter a new step here without pressing the pad in note mode. So when you are in velocity mode, you could, for example, enter a bass drum pickup note here as well, which is a little bit less intense than the other bass drums, as you can see here. And then it sounds like that. Okay, so next I would add a hi-hat pattern. So I start with, go to note mode here, not in velocity mode. So when I am on drum 3, I will just enter a couple of closed hi-hats and also some open hi-hats, and then it sounds like that. And also I will change the velocity settings here, so all the notes that are on the main counting times I will just leave as they are, and the other ones for those I will decrease the velocity. So on this one I will take it down, on this one, and on this one. And the open hi-hat notes here, again this flipping principle, I will just leave them untouched. Okay, so this is how velocity can be changed, and what I want to show you next is how you can change the drum patches. So for all these different drum sounds, you have the option to change them, and in order to get there you need to press Shift and the drum in focus. Right now I'm looking at drum 1, which is the bass drum, and when you get into this view you will notice when I play the groove I can change the bass drum sound in real time. But what I want to tell you here is that you don't have to use drum 1 as a bass drum. You could also use it as a snare drum, and then you will find the snare drum patches on the lower 2 pad rows. So the upper 2 rows are reserved for the bass drum, and the lower 2 rows for the snare drum. Just for example now. Okay, but of course we want to have a bass drum there. Then when you go to drum number 3, which is the closed hi-hat, and they do the same, so Shift and drum 3, then you're in patch selection mode. Then you should know that the first 2 pads are closed hi-hat pads, then the next 4 pads are open hi-hat pads. Here I have a couple of cymbals, and down here you have special drum sounds like percussion and some not that regular sounds. Okay, so this is how you can change the different drum sounds. But there are other ways to change drum sounds as well, and this is you can take a drum sound as it is from a patch that you've selected, and then you can change the quality of this sound, and you do this via the macro controls on the top. You see the macro controls, they all have some LEDs below, and those are different in brightness here. And this reflects that, or this reflects the amount of this parameter that is currently dialed in. Yeah. So when you, for example, go to drum 1, then you can change pitch, decay, distortion, and filter for this drum. When you go to drum 2, on the same page, you have the same here on the lower row of macro knobs. So let's see how that sounds with the bass drum if I increase the pitch. And those can later on be automated, and I will show you how this works in a different video. So you have pitch, then you have decay. So take it out, then you see what the effect is. Then you have distortion. Can use quite drastic settings, and this is filter. So you can take away some of the low frequency spectrum, which you might not want to do for the bass drum. When you've come to this point, you might want to change the swing feel of that groove, and you can do this quite easily while you're in play mode and press the swing button, and then you can see currently the mount is set to 50, which means that there's no swing applied, so it's a straight groove. And there are 2 ways to change this now. Either you take go below 50 and then it gets some urgency. But if you go higher, you get this shuffle feel that kicks in at about 66. So you move that groove from a binary feel to a ternary shuffle feel, and while I seldom use the values lower than 50, I tend to use the values between 60 and 70 for some shuffle feel. Also, if you want to change the tempo of that groove, you can do so by pressing the tempo button, and while you're in play mode you can reduce tempo in real time or turn it up, or you can press Shift and tap on the tempo button to increase tempo or lower tempo. Next, I want to tell you how you can record a drum groove in real time. I won't do this for a complete groove, but I will do it for the bass drum and the snare drum pattern. So I go back to Node. I will erase each of these steps by just pressing the pads again. And then I can go to Shift and Node, and then I enter real-time mode, which means that these pads here are now my different drum sounds. And what I also want to check here is if this pad is lit or this button is lit, because this means if it's lit, you're in fixed velocity mode, but when you record something in real time, you might want to leave it off. I will just use fixed velocity here right now because it also was before. And then I hit record, hit play. And there's my drum groove again. When I go back to the regular view, then you see there's the drum pattern that I just played.